Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Retriever Nation, stand up. We kid. This is still the Real Chili Podcast. My name is Brian Henry. Postseason play. Yeah, let the dogs bark. Why not? Postseason play is ongoing. We're not playing in the big one, but hell, Marquette basketball's playing games, so we might as well talk about it. Joined alongside, as always, by Pete Mohan. Peter, happy NIT season. Is anything important happening in the big dance? Do we care? Is there any reason to even watch it?
The big dance is happening, but what's the word for the NIT? Is it a dance or is it like a get together or?
It's kind of a get. Yeah, you're right. It is a get together. Yeah, it's not definitely
a shindig.
You're right. It's a
just a few casual basketball games with no pressure on anyone, just for the sake of hooping it up.
We apologize for dipping out of your podcast feed for a few weeks. All parties being busy and just overall frustration with not making the NCAA tournament. But don't look now, sports fans, but the Marquette Golden Eagles have won their first two games of the NIT. Both played at home. They took down Harvard in their first game, 67-60. And just this past Sunday, Pete dropped an atomic bomb of offense on the Oregon Ducks, 101-92 at the Al McGuire Center. They are on to the quarterfinals where they will host Penn State. Yeah, the Fighting Tony Carr is coming to Milwaukee. Can't wait to watch him drop 40. More on him in a minute. They will play there Tuesday night against Penn State. Pete, I guess it's better than losing to Harvard in the first round, right? Might as well win if you're going to play them.
Hey, 2 wins, nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, no one can continue on with any narrative that's, oh, this team quit on the season or Wojo lost the team. Clearly they're out here.
Mike Lavender.
No, I mean, they're still out here balling out. I think that it's the same team that you've seen all season. When they're hitting shots, they're playing well. Actually, in the Harvard game, I think we played pretty good defense, I will say.
They did play very
good defense. They were missing their best players.
Harvard was missing the Ivy League Player of the Year, which in a 7-point game, granted a lot of those buckets came late to make it a 7-point game, but that guy would have definitely made a difference. But holy good Lord, I mean, the Oregon game in the first quarter, and it's weird saying quarter because that's what they're doing for the NIT this year, they came right out of the gate and just threw haymakers. For whatever reason, apparently Oregon decided to punt on watching any film or reading any scouting report on Andrew Rousey shooting threes because they decided to backpedal until he got to the three-point line. And Pete, while Andrew has frustrated us at different moments this year, one thing we are all more than happy to see him do is shoot open threes with his feet square to the basket. And wow, did he make the Ducks pay. That's
a free throw for him.
He essentially won the game in the first quarter. They basically knocked Oregon out in the first quarter.
I don't know if it's just the infamiliarity with the Big East and what these guys have done, but any sane coaching staff that just thinks they can just roll out the barrel against these two guys and not give up open, easy three-point shots, I mean, they're crazy. I don't know what you're game planning around if you're not even just spending 20 minutes looking at film and saying, chase those two guys off the line, which they didn't do in the first quarter.
They didn't do it at all in the first quarter. And props to Marcus and Sam and obviously Andrew for making them pay to do it. It was fun to see. I mean, look, we got to take this with a grain of salt. It is in the NIT. Oregon, is a flawed team. They, struggled in the Pac-12. I actually was, oddly enough, Pete, I went to an Arizona State game earlier this year and got to see Oregon play live when they beat Arizona State. But then again, everybody beat Arizona State in Pac-12 play, so I shouldn't be that impressed by that.
Very true.
Marquette shot 46% from three. in the game. They do that, and you're going to get a 100 plus point effort, and that's what you got.
Needless to say, we shot so well against the Ducks that Gordon Bombay went and got another DUI last night.
That, you know what? That's a great point. And Gordon, you have a problem. We all care for you. We got to get you.
Go sharpen some skates, bud.
The outcome of the game being something that was nice to me, Pete. The thing that was the most interesting, we're obviously watching the tournament. That has the majority of our attention, but I had the Marquette game on DVR, so I was able to flip over and watch it for stretches. I'll tell you what, fun to see basketball in the Al McGuire Center. It was, that building was on campus. We saw the women's team play there a bunch of times while we were in school, and obviously Madness is hosted there a year. But it's cool to see the men's team playing there with the fans really right on top of you. They packed it and put 3,800 plus in the building, and it really was a good atmosphere because when they started hitting shots, it got loud, and you could tell, Oregon, not that the crowd was the reason for it, Andrew Rousey obviously was, but it was a good environment to see basketball played in rather than a cavernous Bradley Center, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it fit us perfectly, what with being a mid-major and all, that we are.
Oh, hey now. Hey now.
No.
Hey now.
Actually, this part got wiped out into the abyss of our last Ghost pod, but I will just say it, and you can edit that part out. But
shouts to the Ghost pod, which never saw the light of day. It was a good podcast, people. We promise it was good.
It was great. But if you're Wojo and you're signing this team up for the intramural basketball league at Marquette, 5-on-5, are you really signing this team up for the A-League? No.
The answer is no.
This is a B-League team through and through.
They played in the A-League during the regular season, the Big East Conference, and they showed they probably belonged in the B.
Exactly.
They did.
Actually, you are afforded that opportunity by the recreational staff if you feel after the regular season in A, you would prefer to play your playoff games in B, they will allow you to do that. And I think that...
You sound like a former 4-year employee of the Marquette University Rec Center.
Oh, absolutely. If you're the AD, you're saying, hey, look, this team has a chance at a championship. It's not in the A-League.
And I should probably back off. They did go 9-9 in a very good Big East that sent 6 teams to the tournament. Unfortunately, only one team is playing. But actually, you know what? Let me amend that. Fortunately, suck it, Xavier. I'm glad you lost last night. JP Mercura, go away. We never want to watch you again.
Bye.
So I'm thrilled there's one team. I wish Butler had won, but God, thank the Lord.
Skyline Chili sucks.
They do. Tough weekend for the city of Cincinnati. Both the Bearcats and the Musketeers go down.
Tough.
They thought they had potential 2 Final Four teams. You get nothing.
Tough weekend for shaved head coaches, whether you're Buzz, Chris Mack, or Mick Cronin, or Kevin Willard for that matter. Maybe guys go down.
Maybe there is something to that, but despite all that, this league had, Marquette was the 7th team in the conference. They kind of ended up where they were. 9-9 is not terrible, so I shouldn't say they're a B-League team, but they didn't play well enough to play with the A-League teams in the tournament. And I think that's our underlying disappointment for the year. That's going to be kind of the theme of the offseason. But, Pete, here was the critical question I wanted to ask you with what's been going on. We're not really going to sit here and break down these NIT games super in depth. Maybe if they get to the Final Four, and we'll talk Penn State here in just a second. But Pete, the question I wanted to ask you is, are you able to view these games in the prism of next year, in that we are on to next season? Even though Andrew Rousey might be on the court, they are now practicing, and they just happen to be playing opposing teams, but they are preparing for opening night on November 9th or whatever it is next season to go out and prove a resume worthy of a strong NCAA tournament berth.
Yeah, and I think it's important to watch with an eye towards how the young guys are playing and how they're being used out there on the court. Especially the thing that interests me is watching the development of Greg Elliott's ball handling, which is an imperative piece of this team's offense going forward.
Got to get better.
He's got to get better. He's got to get stronger on the ball. That's something that's coachable. It's something that you can add to your game. And I think that, he's used to having the ball in his hands in high school. He was basically the ball dominant guard on his team.
Well, and a story going into this offseason, Pete, is going to be, this team needs another ball handler next year. Is it currently on the roster? Are they going to look the grad transfer route? Is it potentially a junior college guy? Does somebody transfer off of this? There are a lot of unresolved questions, but we know this. Right now, Marcus Howard is the one primary point guard returning next year. They're going to need somebody else to handle the ball when he's not in the game. Greg right now, while I don't think would be the primary choice, he can work at it and he could earn some of those minutes. And, for a guy his size, it'd be nice to see him do it. But he played great the other day against Oregon, 13 points, 5 for 5 from the free throw line. He's really progressed nicely, and same with Jamal Cain this year. Theo John was good too, 10 points from Theo John. So, the freshman, I think there's a very high ceiling for this freshman class.
Oh, absolutely.
I am eager. I agree with you in the sense we're watching these games looking to next year. The three young guys are the ones you really want to say, let's end on a real strong note. Mm-hmm. Does it bother you at all if this turns into into the Andrew Rousey just shooting? I don't. He's a senior. Why not? Let him go out and shoot every damn shot if he wants.
Well,
I'm okay
if he's
with
going to
it.
hit 50% of his threes, then shoot 23s. I don't care.
Yeah, by all means. Andrew, do your thing, buddy. These are your last few college games. Just go down.
Especially in the Al.
Right. Why the hell not?
How many more games ever, in the history of the Al going forward, let's say the Al survives 50 years, how many total games do you think Marquette is going to play, official games?
I think the precedent's being set, probably only NIT games.
Right, so maybe in the lifespan.
Hopefully no more games, Pete. That's what we hope. Hopefully they never play another game there, but
he has a chance as a senior to go out and kind of add some folklore to the Al, some spice to it, because I don't know, there's the old gym over by the rec center, and that place has seen some things. That's seen some basketball. The Al,
yes, it has.
While the Al has seen some good women's basketball and volleyball, it's really yet to be kind of seasoned by Marquette men's basketball. I don't know, all of the kind of Marquette madnesses that I've seen have kind of been duds. And I don't know. It's kind of an opportunity to add some folklore to the building.
You make a great point there, and that's a great opportunity for us to pivot and look at Tuesday night's game against Penn State. Penn State was a team that was right on the edge of the NCAA tournament, like Marquette. A bad non-conference slate really is what doomed them. They played very well in the Big Ten Conference. They boast who I think may be... God, Mikal Bridges is definitely at the top of the list, but one of the most talented players.
Are you trying to go full Jesse Palmer here?
I'm not saying the. I'm not giving him the. Tony Carr, the 6'5" guard for Penn State, who Marquette will play tomorrow, is one of the most complete players in the country, and they'll have the pleasure of attempting to guard him. He averages 20 a game, 5 boards, 5 assists. That is a small list in college of guys who average 25 and 5. He's that good. I've watched Penn State play a few times this year. He's as advertised. He ripped up Notre Dame last game. This will be a fun from a standpoint of Marquette's defense, obviously being a huge focal point this year, Pete, and being largely disappointing. They were pretty good against Harvard. I think they did well against Oregon in the sense that when it was a competitive game, I think when they got up 25 points, they obviously took their foot off the gas and Oregon came back. But they're going to that's going to be a big test. Home game, should have a great crowd, good energy in the building. Can you stop Tony Carr? Who guards Tony Carr?
Let me ask you this, Brian. I haven't seen him play. Compared to some of the guards that we've seen in the Big East this year, who would you compare his game to most? Is he like a Carrington type of guy, or...
I think you just beat me to it. I would say a more skilled Kadeem Carrington. Mm-hmm. I think that's a because he's a bigger guy at 6'5". Yeah. He's over 200 pounds. He's solid. He finishes. He's a better passer than Kadeem
from three too, which is
right. And he's a better passer than Kadeem Carrington. So amp Kadeem Carrington up, and Kadeem Carrington has been a problem for Marquette. I believe the last 3 years since he's been a sophomore at Seton Hall, he's put up some big numbers against Marquette. This will be a fun matchup for whoever they rotate. I think Sam Hauser might guard him a little bit. I think Sakar might guard him a little bit, and Greg Elliott will probably get a piece as well. Or maybe, Pete, Wojo is going to accept the trend of college basketball now and realize that nobody knows how to play against an effing zone defense, and they'll just roll out a 2-3 all game because, hey, crap, maybe they won't be able to do anything. Michigan State. Bunch of frauds. God. Sorry.
Well,
digress.
I will say that it's maybe not the best idea to go zone against this team because they have a couple pretty good perimeter guys. We mentioned Carr, but I also want to shout out the fact that we're playing a guy named Shep. That's right, Shep Garner, 3-point specialist for your Nittany Lions. And
if you go by Shep, you definitely have to be a sharpshooter.
Well, I just don't want to go down to a guy named Shep, is what I'm saying. I mean, that's shameful. But as a team, they did shoot 38% from three, so they are a pretty good 3-point shooting team. I don't know about the zone in this one. I think we need to give Theo John an opportunity to win this game defensively for us by funneling Carr into the middle and letting Theo guard the rack and see if he can do it without fouling. This is an opportunity for us to grow defensively against a big guard who we've struggled with, all season long in terms of giving up fouls, giving up free throws. So I think that's something I'd like to see this team work on defensively against Carr is try to be physical with him, try to guard him, but don't give up and ones left and right and let him get 15 free throws in this game. Try to contain him by moving your feet and funneling them to the shot blocker.
It will be a stiff test. We know that, the one thing we know for sure is that it's going to be the last game of the season in Milwaukee for Marquette. Andrew Rousey is going to get a second senior day. Not saying they're going to do any pregame ceremony stuff, but he gets to play in front of the home crowd one last time, and Marquette's going to see if they can advance on to the Final Four in New York City. That is it for this edition of the Real Chili Podcast. This team keeps winning. Hell, we'll probably keep talking about it, so why the heck not? Pete, any final thoughts?
Just enjoying these extra couple games of Marquette basketball, and hey, hopefully we make it to the Big Apple and make a splash. And we still have the opportunity, I will point out, for the Big East to win both the NIT and the NCAA tournament, which would be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool.
Pretty dang cool.
I'll leave you with this. If you want something good to laugh to and you want to feel the joy and energy of the NCAA tournament, check out our kindred spirits over at Blur's Madness, the Loyola Chicago podcast. They do a very entertaining job, and just the other day they released a new podcast, Pete, and it was quite entertaining as they move on to the Sweet 16. Sister Jean Love, it's in the air.
Sister Jean, gotta love it. Also, the Retrievers, hell of a win. You gotta shout out. First ever 16 seed to knock off number 1. Virginia sucks. Tony Bennett, you're a shameful piece of basketball history.
Retriever Nation, stand up. Although, Pete, I will not back down from saying as much as I loved watching that happen and as much as I wanted to see the Retrievers move on to the Sweet 16.
You're the dog.
They played in arguably the worst basketball game I've ever seen against Kansas State.
Oh.
That was absolutely horrible. But we don't need to break that down. Great season for those kids. They made history. That's all that matters. All right, that's it for the Real Chili Podcast. We'll talk to you next time. Go Marquette.
Rah, rah.